Mike Tyson now have been suspended from boxing after controversy.
Jake Paul and Mike Tyson's recent fight in Texas was anything but ordinary, and it's left the boxing world reeling. The fight, which was billed as the ultimate clash of eras, Mike Tyson, the legendary boxer, and Jake Paul, the YouTube star turned fighter, ended with a result that many fans didn't see coming. Jake Paul won by unanimous decision, and the fallout was swift, brutal, and left a lot of people questioning what really happened inside the ring that night. Hours before the highly anticipated fight, an anonymous profile on X posted a suspicious document that seemed to predict the entire outcome. The post explained that Tyson would be cautious and defensive in the early rounds, that Paul would build confidence, and that Paul would eventually win by unanimous decision. While this could have been just another internet conspiracy, the eerie accuracy of the script has led many to believe that something far more sinister was at play. The document outlined Tyson's early defensive stance, Paul's calculated jabs, and even Tyson's post-fight excuse about age and fatigue. The script, though later deleted, seemed to predict exactly what would unfold that night. Tyson, the former heavyweight champion who had once ruled the boxing world, appeared to be holding back. He wasn't the powerhouse we had all hoped to see. Instead, Tyson seemed timid, cautious, and lacking the aggression that had made him a fearsome force in his prime. On the other hand, Jake Paul, a social media star with limited boxing experience, appeared more confident and composed, landing punches with surprising accuracy. By the third round, it was clear this wasn't the fight fans had been promised. The fight had been hyped up as the event of the decade. Tyson, at 58 years old, had spent months promoting the fight with a PR blitz that showcased him in training videos, throwing punches at bags, and talking about how age was just a number. He looked every bit the part of a fighter trying to prove he could still compete at the highest level. But once the bell rang, it was clear that something was off. Tyson's footwork was slow, his punches lacked power, and his defensive movement seemed more like someone trying to avoid punches than someone fighting for victory. Meanwhile, Jake Paul, who had previously fought Nalbatis in the ring, was landing punches and showing off his improved skills. By round 3, the writing was on the wall. Tyson, who had once bulldozed through some of the greatest names in boxing, seemed to be fighting only to survive, not to win. Jake Paul, on the other hand, looked more like the fighter people were starting to believe in, landing combinations and showing off some decent technique. Tyson's punches seemed labored, his breathing heavy. It wasn't the fight anyone had been expecting. The crowd, once electrified with anticipation, grew quieter as the fight wore on. Fans who had once idolized Tyson started to realize that this wasn't the Tyson they had watched on TV for years. This wasn't the same ferocious beast that had struck fear into the hearts of opponents. No, this was a man who, at nearly 60 years old, was no longer capable of competing at the highest level. By the end of the fight, when the judges declared Jake Paul the winner, the disappointment was palpable. For those of us who had watched Tyson in his prime, it was hard to believe what we had just witnessed. Social media exploded with reactions. Some defended Tyson, pointing out that he was 58 years old and that it was unfair to expect him to be the same fighter he was decades ago. Others were less kind, calling him out for even stepping into the ring at his age. Then, of course, there were those who suggested that the fight had been rigged, that it had all been scripted for entertainment purposes. Many of us were left feeling betrayed, as though we had just watched a staged spectacle rather than a legitimate boxing match. For Tyson, the damage was done. His legacy, which had been built on his raw power and dominance in the ring, was now tainted. No longer was he the baddest man on the planet. He was the poster child for a fight that many believed was rigged for financial gain. The idea that a former legend could be involved in such a spectacle left fans feeling as though the entire sport of boxing had been sullied. Tyson, a fighter who had earned respect through years of hard work and legendary fights, was now seen as just another piece in the entertainment machine, a pawn in a game of maximizing views and profits. But it didn't stop there. The public backlash continued to grow, and soon the conspiracy theories started to gain more traction. A leaked script, which had initially seemed like a joke, became a key piece of evidence for those claiming that the entire fight had been staged. The script had outlined exactly what would happen during the fight. Tyson would start cautiously, Paul would gain confidence, and eventually Tyson's fatigue would set in, allowing Paul to win. And that's exactly what happened. The more we learned about the financial side of the fight, the more troubling it became. It was revealed that Tyson had been promised a hefty payout $20 million for participating in the fight. Jake Paul, meanwhile, was set to make an eye-watering $40 million. These massive payouts weren't tied to any real competition, they were tied to drama, to viewership, to selling an event. The fight wasn't about showcasing Tyson's skill or proving that he could still hang with the best, it was about creating a spectacle. And the spectacle worked. Netflix, which had partnered with the event to create a mega event dubbed the Fight of the Decade, saw record-breaking viewership numbers, bringing in over 100 million live viewers. It was the most-watched boxing event in history, but at what cost? As the dust settled, the Nevada State Athletic Commission launched an official investigation into the fight. The whispers about shady financial deals and backroom agreements grew louder. Even Netflix, which had been basking in the glow of the massive viewership, found itself in hot water. Leaked emails revealed that the event had been marketed as boxing meets entertainment, a far cry from the serious sporting event that fans had been promised. The investigation continued, and soon it was revealed that both Tyson and Paul had been involved in financial deals designed to maximize their payouts. It wasn't about sportsmanship, it was about money. The consequences of the fight were severe. Both Tyson and Paul were banned from boxing. Tyson was given a lifetime ban, and Jake Paul received a 5-year suspension. They were also ordered to return millions of dollars in earnings. Tyson was hit with an $8 million payback demand, while Jake Paul was required to return $15 million. Additionally, criminal charges for fraud and conspiracy were reportedly being explored. The damage to Tyson's legacy was irreversible. For decades, he had been the face of raw power and dominance in the ring. Now he was seen as a man who had sold out his legacy for money and spectacle. Fans who had supported him through thick and thin felt betrayed, not just by his performance in the fight, but by what it represented. A hollow, money-driven version of boxing that had nothing to do with the sport's true essence. Boxing purists were outraged, calling the event a stain on the sport's integrity. Casual fans who had tuned in to see the fight of the decade were left wondering if they could ever trust another high-profile match. The Tyson-Paul fight wasn't just a personal tragedy for Tyson, it was a blow to boxing itself. It showed how quickly a legacy can crumble when the sport becomes more about entertainment and financial gain than about the fighters and the sport itself. Tyson had been a symbol of raw, unfiltered power, but after that night in Texas, he became a cautionary tale about how greed can destroy everything a fighter has worked for.